Okay, another film on the genetic themes. Now it's a very important point in my life. I may even say that that maybe I can read this lecture and then quietly die because the mission of my life will be accomplished. What do I mean? Some 15 years ago, I collaborated with a woman who was a professional genetist, genetic, well, a specialist in genetics. I wouldn't inform you on her name, but at that time, I told her that I sort of discovered tripartite division of humanity in relation to the concentration of the testosterone, of which I've told before in my films. That is that Mongoloids have the lowest concentration of testosterone. I mean males. Europeoids or Caucasians, intermediate level, and Negroids, or blacks, or Australian Aboriginals and Papuans, the highest levels of testosterone in their blood serum or serum. And I told her that we could try to find a gene or a group of genes which are responsible for such difference. To which she replied that Sasha, my name is Alexander, so in short, the short form is Sasha. Sasha, one cannot jump over the precipice in two jumps. Sasha, пропасть нельзя перепрыгнуть в два прыжка in Russian. Meaning that there is too little known about the functioning of the genes, how they finally produce the reactions, the biochemical reactions in the organism. And that was the beginning of our division, because somehow in whole of my life I tried to jump off the precipice in two jumps. That's my principle. And more than 10 years, I say, about 15 years later, it has come that now it is known what gene governs this difference regulates this difference in testosterone. And it happened to be just one gene, you know? It's a very, very great luck that this regulatory gene is just one. How I came to know it? First, I came across a short film, a small film, the notebook number 8, page 29. Notebook number 8, page 29. So what the title? What was the title of this film? I'm in the YouTube. The title: First experimental genetic evidence of the human self-domestication hypothesis. I've already discussed this self-domestication hypothesis. And this film is just about 4 or 5 minutes long. No picture, just the skulls of the Homo sapiens and Neanderthals. And some principal names were mentioned. And I found the papers of these people, of these scientists. But what is most important, that the name, that this gene, regulatory gene, was named. BAZ1B. This is a gene that regulates all of it. All self-domestication syndrome. And I must tell a couple of words about the self-domestication. It's the theme that's much discussed in the internet. I mean, by the scientists who give popular lectures of their scientific research. It very short. A couple of people propose, important people, that in the evolution of Homo sapiens there was an episode of self-domestication, that we sort of self-domesticated ourselves, which equals to the terms that I used before, pedomorphization, or some people used feminization of the skull, which I prefer not to use. But the essence of the process is the same. So, about self-domestication. There was a famous, in the 40s, Russian geneticist, Dmitry Belyaev, who tried to domesticate foxes in Siberia, in Novosibirsk. And there was a selection just on tameness, but the suit of the correlated characteristics, phenotypical characteristics, appeared alongside with the tameness, which is the form of the tail, like in dogs, in circle tail. I don't know how to pronounce it correctly. Flopping ears, small teeth, short. In animals, it's called differently. In humans, it's face. And some other features, for instance, patchy coloration of the skin. So, and there is one famous scientist whose name is William Tecumseh Finch, who in these popular lectures noted that, or stressed that the whole suite of these features is just a byproduct of selection of tameness. These are non-adaptive correlation factors of the in this case the selection of the foxes for friendliness towards people. And the scientists discovered that all these features, why are they in a suit? Because they are finally controlled by a single formation in the animal or human embryo, which is called neural crest, which is a sum of, in the early stages of the embryo, there is a set of migratory stem cells, pluripotent, how they call, which form all these tissues later. Ears, teeth, small teeth, short snout, coloration of the animal skin. I always, in my head, the word is wool, but it's wrong. Okay. And some other features. So all these tissues are formed by the cells which originally are in this neural crest. So that's why they come together in a suit. And in the previous lectures I mentioned testosterone. testosterone. And what is quite interesting, that the cells of this neural crest form the adrenal glands. The adrenal glands. Underdevelopment of this neural crest causes the underdevelopment or slow retardation of the development of the adrenal glands. And what is the most important, that these adrenal glands, alongside with other steroid hormones, produce testosterone. They produce testosterone. And so this Tecumseh Fitch, William Tecumseh Fitch, said that only one feature of the domestication syndrome does not fit this explanation, because the neural crest cells do not form the brain. But one of the features of the domesticated animals is that their brains are smaller than the brains of the wild counterparts. But I can explain this. For instance, in a previous lecture I said about the paper of the Cedric Books, as I called him Books, but it happened that I pronounced his surname wrongly alongside with others, because the final S is not read. His surname is pronounced either Book or Bock. Cedric works in Spain, and his paper with the colleagues, I don't remember now the name, was about the globularity of the head of the Homo sapiens. And now compare the size of the brain of Homo sapiens females and males. You would agree that on the average, statistically, the women have smaller brain than the men, which doesn't affect their intellectual abilities. But what do you think determines this difference? I would say the only determinant is the testosterone action in the period of pubertas. And the testosterone is produced by the adrenal glands, which are controlled by the neural crest cells. And what controls the neural crest cells? Just one regulatory gene, BAZ1B. BAZ1B. In the next article, if I understand it correctly, they claim that probably this regulatory gene controls about 400 other genes. But the ultimate reason, it causes neurocristopathy, sort of a disease in humans, which is called Williams disease. Some disfiguration of the skull, alongside the specific friendliness, but in mild concentration of the dosing of this regulatory gene, mild effect of this gene causes this the whole set of so-called domestication syndrome. Of course, in humans it's self-domestication, and humans don't have tails or pointed ears like wolves and so on. But actually they have a reduction of the earlobe, but I prefer not to discuss it. So, now I just read from this article, the new article, which is as a short film in the internet, in the YouTube, proclaims that this is the first experimental evidence of the action of this gene. So it's page I begin to cite. First, who wrote this article? In this short film, Giuseppe Testa is mentioned, and a guy called, a scientist called Alejandro. But I couldn't guess from the pronounced name, the surname, but it happened later. I figured out that his surname is Andirico. Alejandro Andirico is a member. And they published a paper in the scientific journal Science Advances, volume 5, number 12, 2019. The paper is rather, of course it's a paper of specialists, so it's called dosage analysis of the some region, I just wouldn't pronounce it, Williams region, identifies BAZ1B as the major human gene patterning the modern human face, and underlying self-domestication. By the way, the first author is given as Matteo Zanella, then Alexandra Vitriolo, Alexandra Anderico, etc., and many other authors. So now I just read a couple of lines from this article, which I found, of course. Well, this is a specific language. By intersecting our experimental data with new paleogenetic analysis, comparing modern and archaic humans, we found a modern specific enrichment for regulatory changes both in BAZ1B and its experimentally defined downstream targets, etc. So, to put it in more simple terms, they mean enrichment. So this is a process of epigenetic controlling by this gene of the other genes, and modern specific meaning that there were changes. There are differences in the action of this gene between the archaic humans, meaning Neanderthals and Denisovans, and the modern humans. And as a result, the people get more globular heads, they are more talkative, they experience in their development, we might say, feminization, because women have smaller brains, they develop the language skills faster than boys, I mean girls, and they solve the verbal tasks better on average than males. So all this is controlled by self-domestication, which happened at some point of human evolution, and which is controlled finally by just one regulator gene. Well, now I maybe, if I have time, I'll continue citing from this article, but now I get to the point of where it happened and when it happened. this is first I show the I suppose the wrong map. All process that all the self-domestication, which has been discussed just a couple of minutes ago, happened within this population bearing F haplogroup of the Y chromosome, but not in northwestern India, but here, where this mutation or mutations or enrichment happened